Hi, everyone. Welcome to the second video in Nonprofit Finance Fund series, A Beginner's Guide to Debt for Nonprofits. This video will cover how to determine if debt is the right financial tool for your nonprofit's particular challenge or opportunity. Organizations considering taking on debt for the first time will be confronted with a lot of decision points. And since applying for and managing a loan requires a significant investment of time and energy, it's important to evaluate whether debt is the right financial tool for your organization at the present moment. So here are some key criteria that will be important to meet before moving forward with taking on debt. And the first is that debt should always be used to address a need that is related to your mission. So, for example, a loan could provide an organization with working capital or cash that's needed to grow a program in response to increased demand for those services in your community. And by clearly connecting the loan to that mission need, you're able to ensure that the effort, time, and money used for the debt will have a maximum positive impact on the communities that you serve. And the second positive indicator is that the debt that you're exploring should address a need that's related to timing. So, debt can solve short term cash flow challenges when revenue is secured, but it's not yet available. So, for example, a line of credit, which is a type of debt, can help an organization cover payroll or other day to day expenses during points in the year when an organization anticipates its cash balances to be low. And having access to a working capital loan like a line of credit can help avoid something like a cash crunch and really act as a bridge to revenue that'll come in at a later date, like a big end of the year fundraiser when you can recoup the revenue borrowed against that line of credit. But debt can also help with some larger planned expenses too, like the cash that's needed to purchase a building. In this case, loans can provide the upfront cash needed to move forward with the purchase while allowing for repayment over time. And lastly, before taking on debt, it's critical for organizations to confirm their future revenue will be able to cover both their regular operating expenses in addition to all of the new costs that will be associated with that debt. This is often called debt service payments, and this includes payments that are made towards the loan principal amount, as well as any interest that's owed, and other fees that are related to the loan. So always remember that borrowing money does cost money, and it's critically important to ensure that your revenue can support both your regular operating day-to-day expenses as well as your debt service payments. So we'll share just a quick example of an organization that kind of followed this process and determined that debt was the right tool for them. We have this fictitious organization, we'll call them ABC. And ABC is a workforce development nonprofit that connects young people with living wage jobs. And ABC recently received a new reimbursement-based contract from the New York City Department of Small Business Services to expand their programming. And in order to start this new program, ABC must be able to cover the upfront expenses related to that program before receiving reimbursement payments from its contract. So in this case, ABC is exploring a $1 million bridge loan to bridge that timing delay. And they've used cash flow projections to determine how much they'll need to borrow, as well as, and very importantly, that they'll be able to cover their debt service payments on top of their other regular day-to-day expenses. So in this example, ABC knew that the debt would support their mission. They ensured the financial need was related to the timing of revenue that's already been secured. It's just not yet available. And they've projected having future revenue to cover both their regular operating expenses and their new debt service payments. So, having checked all of these boxes, ABC gave itself the green light to move forward with using debt as a financial tool to grow their programs. But we know that debt does not solve all issues for all organizations at all times. And when it's not well used, debt can cause just as much harm as good. So that's why we want to name some common reasons to pause when exploring debt. as any of these scenarios can indicate that it could be harmful for an organization. And first, because debt is not a substitute for revenue, it's not able to help fill a significant gap in your budget. For instance, if you've lost a major source of consistent revenue. And in this instance, your time would probably be better spent working on securing new, consistent revenue to fill that gap. And while debt could offer short-term relief here, it's really not a sustainable long-term solution for organizations. And secondly, and maybe more generally, it's really best to pause if you do not have a clear path and plan for how the debt will be repaid. This is both something you'll want to confirm internally as your organization's leadership from a management perspective, but also because any lender will need to know that you can repay this loan too. And if you can't demonstrate that you have a clear path to repayment, it's probably not worth your time to explore one right now. And we know that taking on debt and deciding whether to take on debt is often more nuanced than this red light, green light approach. But when either of these scenarios here are true, it's really often best to pause and consider if this is the right time and the right tool, if debt is the right tool for the financial need that we're trying to solve for. So we want to take a minute too just to talk about the power dynamics of debt. And really, while debt can be a helpful tool in building and adapting financial realities, we at NFF recognize that throughout history, lending and borrowing have reinforced harmful power dynamics, particularly for low-income communities and communities of color, and that these communities, both their individuals and the nonprofits that serve them, have been denied access to debt through practices like redlining. Other organizations have been subject to predatory lending, which can create cycles of perpetual debt and really inhibit building community wealth. And as a community development financial institution, or CDFI, Nonprofit Finance Fund is dedicated to serving communities that have been historically excluded from our financial system, but we're also a part of that system. So any lender, NFF included, can unintentionally perpetuate these injustices through debt. So all borrowers, especially those considering taking on debt for the first time, should approach the lending process with a really keen awareness of these power dynamics. So that's all for this video, which covered how to know if debt is the right tool for your financial challenge. If you have any other questions about debt and the lending process, please check out the other videos in our series.